What is up, guys, gals, and non-binary pals? My name is Naomi. Welcome to House of Miscellania. Today, I'm coming at you with a WIP and chat. WIP stands for Work in Progress, and I'm going to chat for about an hour. And you can treat this like a podcast. You can open up a diamond painting and diamond paint along with me while I chat. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my week, and then I'm going to talk to you today about something that is one of the top 3 mental health concerns that has been Googled since 2025 started, and why I'm talking to you about it. That all said, let me get into my tools that I've got in front of me, and I'll go into the rest. I am using a pen here from Diamond Painting Pen Pal. This is the Satura pen. Diamond Pen Pal can be found on Etsy. In my single placer down here, I am using Ghost from Diamond Painting Daily. That's their little symbol on Etsy if you're looking for them. And this is sort of like a glue dot. It starts out liquid and turns solid. It goes from white to clear. That's how you know it's dry. And then it works like a glue dot. Love this stuff. Also on Etsy, it's Diamond Painting Daily. There'll be links in the description. And then in my multi-placer, I have Earth Glow Dot Dot Putty from Butterfly Effectwares. You can also find them over on Etsy. And then I'll be using a tray here from Firefly, and they're at fireflyda.com. This is the Switch Mini Max. I love this thing. It has a removable lid. And then there is a removable trash tray, which I usually do take out and just put to the side. I put my trash in it because when you leave it in here and you put your diamonds into the container, sometimes they come out of the trash tray. But this little hole in the top is really cool. You can put your pen in it so your pen doesn't roll away. Love that. And then it has an open and close pour spout. Also my favorite. And then nice deep grooves. I don't have the washi hack like you can get on them. I don't really find that I need it necessarily for a tray this size, and then the diamond painting that I am using, I have these release papers. Those are from Bee's Crafty Corner, and they are over on Etsy as well. You can check out their Facebook group. And then I am working on a diamond painting. This one is actually from Captured by Radiance. And I'm trying to get you the picture here in my book. All right. And they're over on Captured by Radiance. This is Eden Cove. Look at that. Eden Cove Rubik by Romance Art from Captured by Radiance. And you can go to capturedbyradiance.com. And I love this one. It is unlike any diamond paintings that I've worked on before. I'm not usually an animals person or a landscape person, so this is very different for me. And then for those of you who are familiar with my WIP and chats, I usually, about the back half, I read a tarot card from the Fairies Oracle, and art by Brian Froud, text by Jessica Macbeth, not a sponsor. None of these are sponsors, actually, of the channel. But the Fairies Oracle is one that I've picked up, and I just read one card out of it. I've already pre-shuffled these, so they're all set to go. I've just got, I did the shuffle, and I read those at the end. So, anyways, let me tell you a little bit about my week, and then I'll go into topic about most searched mental health concerns. The week, it's been a normal week, guys. I mean, I really just don't have a whole lot going on in my life. The weather has cleared up, which is nice. I live in Wisconsin, where it was in the negatives for so freaking long. Oh, just tired of cold weather, honestly. And we've finally got a break in the weather around here. It's been high 40s, low 50s, which in Wisconsin in February is a treat. After all of the negative temperatures, I can't complain too much about the current temperatures being what they are, but we do this back and forth here with regard to the weather. Sometimes it will be, beautiful. Sometimes it will be horrible. You don't know what you're going to get. And there comes a point where you've had so much snow and you're just done with it, you know. Well, we didn't get a lot of snow this year. We just had like a few really, really bad storms. This last one, I think we had something like 8 to 10 inches. It was pretty ridiculous. And so it's nice to just finally get back into a kind of sense of normalcy. If you hear any weird noises, my kids are upstairs, and I live in a house that was built in 1900, so the floors be a squeaking. And I think they're going in and out of the bathroom or something. Never mind. Sorry, I'm pulling this release paper and moving it. Probably could have done all this earlier, but now you get to see my process, right? Well, so yeah, normal weather around here. It does tend to get a little crazy round about the February-March time because we don't know what exactly we're gonna get. Sorry, I'm just moving. I want to put this release paper down here so that I have a barrier. Anyways, normal for Wisconsin is not really normal at all because we don't really know what we're going to get. As far as weather is concerned, we know that, you know, it's going to be whatever it is. You just deal with it, you know. Look at this square. Is that not beautiful? Sorry, you have a big old glare on it, but it's coral. I love it. Okay, anyways. So, yeah, it's, you just don't know what you're going to get as far as weather is concerned, and it's always nice when you get a break in the weather. Like 50 degrees around here, people are walking around in shorts and t-shirts and maybe a light sweatshirt. Most places you'd be bundled up for winter, so kind of used to that here. But anyways, so one fun thing that happened, for those of you who follow my WIP and chats, you know that the kids recently took in a little mouse. They named it Booker after the character from BioShock. And so Booker, the little mousey, he was doing really well. And I say was, he did not die. Just make that clear. He didn't die. Booker was doing well. And they had him in the little container that I showed you in a picture before. It was just like a little, you know, temporary thing. It was not meant to be a forever home for Booker. But the kids had left him in there figuring he was okay. The tank that they had, that they were going to set up for him, was too big, in my opinion. But they wanted to get a lid for it before they put him in it because they didn't want the cat to go into the tank. Understandably, Bacon would have probably climbed in there and had fun with Booker, and that might have been the end of Booker. But they didn't get a lid, and apparently he managed to chew his way through the plastic on the top of the little container that he was in, the temporary container, and made his way free. Well, so Booker is somewhere in the house again, because remember, this is where they found Booker, was just a little teeny baby mouse, and now he's back in the house somewhere. So I think a live trap got set up upstairs so that hopefully they can catch him again. And then this time, instead of keeping him, I believe the plan is to like take him down by the river and release him, you know, so he can live somewhere else. I think that if we're going to do a rodent, my son was saying, I'd really like to get a rat. And I'm fine with just about any kind of pets. I've owned every kind of pet there is. The only kind I know we can't have are hamsters. Dustin is allergic to those, but I wouldn't mind having a rat. They're very intelligent animals. They are really tameable, and it sounds like Booker didn't like to be held. I mean, he was a wild mouse, so I wasn't really that surprised when they mentioned that he wasn't really tameable. Rabbits are the same. If you try to bring a baby rabbit in from the wild, they kind of keep the wild about them always because they're a wild animal. It's just in their DNA. That's why, you know, dogs and cats are domesticated, because they've had generations and generations of tamed ancestors, and there is definitely something to the science of that. Sorry, squeaky chair, squeaky chair. But not so. Booker is somewhere in the house. We don't know where Booker is in the house, but he is somewhere. Eventually, maybe he'll be found or not. Who knows? Like I said, my house is built in 1900, so it seems like everything in our house makes noises and squeaks or groans or stretches or shrinks, like especially in the wintertime here, the wood of the house, like, it just does weird things. I know that at some points, like especially in the winter, if you walk too hard through the house, like, things will, like, the shelves will jiggle or move because the wood is shrunk. And then in the summer it swells, and so, because it's wood floors, wood everything in my home, and so when it swells, then, like, our doors don't want to close properly, our windows don't want to close properly, or whatever. It's just, it was built in 1900. Like, what are you going to do? Original, a lot of things. So anyway, I had to take a drink. So, you know, there's probably many an unfound entrance for a mouse to come into the house. And so, you know, short of maybe going around the perimeter and pouring concrete or something, I don't know how in the heck we would fully bat down the hatches over here and not have mice ever again. So it's just something you kind of deal with. I mean, we have a cat, but Bacon is kind of useless as far as catching mice goes. Just not really good at it. So we deal, and it is what it is. So I looked up because I was curious, and as you guys know, I am very, I'm very passionate, let's say passionate about mental health as a topic. One, because I started this channel with the idea that, you know, diamond painting is something that I picked up when I was in rehab and, you know, working out an addiction. And then I found out that it is a wonderful way to relax, calm down. In a survey that the community took, I would say 70%, if I remember correctly, identified as having mental health issues. And so there's a lot of us. There's a lot of us in the community that deal with this. And so I wanted to address that. I did a Google search because I was curious to know like what sorts of topics that people were searching regarding mental health. Like, what are people trying to find out about mental health? As you know, it's important to me because I find my peace and my sanctuary in diamond painting. And there are a lot of people who do not know, like, what symptoms to look for certain things, or they don't know, you know, am I experiencing XYZ? And so I thought, okay, I'm going to look into it and maybe learn something, maybe teach you guys something. And I did the, you know, the Google research for you, so that all you have to do is listen, because, you know, I'm just that kind of friend, I guess. And if it's not something that interests you, I apologize. But maybe you've looked up these things as well. So the three main things, the three most searched mental health topics in the United States right now are anxiety disorders. People want to know about information on symptoms and coping strategies. That was number one, anxiety disorders. Two was ADHD, and it's really garnered significant attention, particularly where it is in regards to like the symptoms and the management of ADHD. And then third was depression. It really continues to be a major topic of interest, and people search for information on symptoms and treatments of that as well. And so I thought, okay, anxiety is huge. And I mean, I'll give you a trigger warning, but I don't think anything that I'm going to say is going to trigger an anxiety attack, but I am going to speak about anxiety and like my experiences with it, and then just some things that maybe you didn't know about anxiety. So if you don't want to hear about anxiety, maybe, check out another WIP and chat of mine. I'm sure there's going to be something you're interested in other than this. The first time that I ever had an anxiety attack, like a straight on anxiety attack, I didn't know what it was until I had another, and then I went and did research, because that's what you do. The very first time that I ever had an anxiety attack, I remember it was a strange sensation, because I remembered my mouth feeling weird. Like, it felt like my mouth was cold and also like dry. It was cold and it was dry. It was like I felt it was strange also, because I thought, I remember continuously asking myself, am I having a heart attack? Is that what this is? I think I was probably in my teens, so I'm like, well, there's probably not a heart attack. I don't understand what's happening. But I remembered this severe pain in my chest, and it was like, it was just dull, it was constant, and it was like where I expected that my heart was. It didn't seem like my heart was beating irregularly, or that, anything aside from the fact that what felt like the area of my heart hurt. And I didn't know what was going on. And when it subsided, which was pretty quickly, and I don't remember at the time, like whatever I was experiencing and in the moment was insignificant. I don't even think I was necessarily stressed, or that anything was happening that would have caused me to start panicking, or for my body to have a fight or flight response. I just remember feeling really uncomfortable, like feeling like I just wanted to run away from whatever the situation was. It's not like I wasn't in trouble. Nothing serious was going on. But I remembered feeling like, I think I'm having a heart attack. And that's pretty common as far as people experiencing what they believe is a heart attack. And so I didn't really think too much of it, because it did subside. Eventually it subsided. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to not worry so much about what's going on, and I'm just going to see if it happens again. Like, kind of keep an eye on the situation, see if it happens again. And went about my life, right? Well, I would have moments like that over the years, whatever. And I remembered asking my mom, because at first I was like, I have a lot of weird stuff going on. If you watched my last WIP and chat, you learned a little bit about synesthesia. And so as far as like my body responding to things strangely, I just thought, maybe it was another thing. Maybe it was something that I heard or I experienced that crossed some wires, didn't think anything of it. I have a history of how to put this. There's a history of trauma in my past, okay? And so when I've spoken to a therapist about it years later, a lot of what I was dealing with was trauma response in the moment, even though I wasn't experiencing the trauma right then. I was emotionally responding to the trauma for whatever reason. And then most recently, I remembered like my most severe like memory of a panic attack was actually when I was in the middle of interviewing someone for a job. I was not interviewing for a job. I was interviewing someone for a job. And I remember that same like pain in my chest. I remembered I was like feeling short of breath. My mouth felt cold, and I described it to my therapist because I had therapy later that day, and he's like, "Well, Naomi, that sounds like a panic attack." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Here I am in my 40s, and I didn't realize that that's what my panic attacks felt like. And everybody's are different. So I'm like, okay, obviously there are things people don't know or understand about anxiety, including me. And I remember like experiencing other panic attacks or anxiety attacks, but I experienced them in a way that I thought a panic attack should be experienced, because I guess in my mind there was a way you're supposed to experience anxiety, which was my heart is beating. I'm either cold sweat or I'm hot sweat or whatever. I'm feeling anxious. I knew what feeling anxious meant, but like having an experience where I was sitting and doing mundane things that I was doing all the time, and was experiencing something completely different from what I thought an anxiety attack was supposed to feel like. And so I'm, these other moments, I knew what those were. I knew those were anxiety attacks or panic attacks or whatever you'd like to call them. So I had no idea that this other thing that was completely different than the other ways I'd experienced anxiety was also panic or anxiety attack. Simply because it was not the way I had experienced anxiety all the other times, except once that I could remember. Well, probably more than once, but once that I could really bring out in memory. And so I'm like, okay, thinking on that, and then looking up, what do people search for when it comes to mental health issues, and anxiety being the number one searched thing. It's like, okay, I'm not alone. There's other people who don't understand or don't realize. And I've told this particular next little story a couple of different times. When I was in rehab and I was talking to my psychiatrist there, I remember him saying something to me that I thought was interesting. And that is, he said, "Naomi, humans are not antelopes." And I was like, yeah, duh. Obviously, humans are not antelopes. And he's like, "No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that antelopes, they don't stand next to a river and wonder, oh my God, how deep is the water? How fast is it going? Are there alligators? Do I need to worry? Can I swim? Am I gonna be able to swim fast enough versus the current? Is there an undertow?" They're not like, fretting at the side of the water. They just go. They just go. Humans will stand at the side of the water and we'll worry about all the things in it, and we'll freak out. We'll get ourselves so emotionally amped and then worn out that if there is an alligator, if there is an undertow, if there is anything in the water that's a danger to us, we can't fight it because we've already worn ourselves out with the fear. We've paralyzed ourselves with fear so that we don't have the actual energy to fight or flight, as the case may be, if there is something in the water. And I was like, that's kind of genius. So anytime I'm able, I share that story because it's like, you know what? I need to be a freaking antelope. I need to just get my ass in the water and swim and worry about what's in the water when I get to it. And I thought I was doing really well with that, which was why when I had experienced that moment of anxiety and I didn't know what it was, that I was like, I'm in my 40s now. A heart attack is, I guess, possible. My mom died at 62 of a heart attack. So it's important to know what anxiety feels like, even when you don't think that there's anything that should be cause for you experiencing it. So I put together a list of things, little did you know, and I thought you would find this interesting as well, because I was reading through the list of did you knows, and I found some things interesting. Did you know this is all about the science of anxiety, these 5 things. Did you know that anxiety is a natural survival mechanism that evolved to protect us from danger? Now, yes, I did know that. Like I said, antelopes do better with anxiety than we do because they don't sit and worry. But we evolved anxiety. It was supposed to be a fight or flight response. It was supposed to get us away from danger more quickly or to help us fight danger if we needed to fight it. Unfortunately, something happened and here's the other thing, in our amygdala, which is it's an almond-shaped part of our brain, and it plays a key role in triggering anxiety responses. Our amygdala is responsible for all of that anxiety that we do have, and something happened where our amygdala responses can sense danger in things that aren't dangerous, unfortunately. Did you know that anxiety can actually shrink your hippocampus? And that's our memory center. And it makes it harder to recall positive experiences. We have what's called a negative bias. And so what we do is we remember all of the bad things that happened to us so that we can avoid them in the future. And it shrinks our memory for good things. So if you're a worrywart, like I can be, or you catastrophize things, you're going to remember all the bad things that happen when you do X, Y, Z. You're not going to remember, like, I remember when I was younger, I used to love climbing trees, getting up high, doing all the things. It wasn't really until I was into my later 20s, after I had fallen out of trees and, hurt myself or whatever, that I finally started to become afraid of heights. And now I'm paralyzed in certain, like, high up situations. But I remember I used to love heights. But now I remember all of the negative things and not the absolute elation from getting up high and seeing the world from, from above. So I'm a very short person. I don't get to see the world from above very often. Number 4, did you know that anxiety activates the same fight or flight response as real physical threats, even when there is no actual danger? You could be sitting interviewing somebody for a job, and for whatever reason, even though there is no actual danger, it could be a smell in the room that triggers it. It could be nothing. It could be literally nothing that triggers this response in us, but we have it. And then 5, did you know that your gut and brain are really closely connected? Digestive issues can both cause and result from anxiety. I don't know about the rest of you, but some of us, obviously, when we have anxiety issues, it also often leads to stomach issues. And actually, one of the major ties to people with autism is often colitis or IBS or stomach issues, because our brains are handling information in a similar way. It's the same portions of the brain that are being affected by autism. Pretty interesting. Those are some things about the science of anxiety. So I don't know about you, but there are things about like the symptoms, surprising symptoms of anxiety that I did not know. Like, did you know that anxiety can cause physical symptoms like dizziness, muscle tension, and even chest pain, mimicking heart problems? And that's what brought on the memory about the chest pains. I was like, yeah, I really, truly thought I was having a heart attack, because it wasn't like anything I'd experienced before except the one other time. And I remember, at least at that time, if there were other times I didn't remember them as clearly, but that I really thought I'm having a heart attack and I'm gonna die. Did you know that chronic anxiety can lead to excessive yawning? That was pretty interesting to me. It's a sign of your body trying to regulate oxygen and calm your nervous system. Now, obviously, yes, we yawn when we're sleepy, but we yawn when our body needs oxygen. And if you are, I remember actually kind of recently, like within the week, I was experiencing something that was pretty stressful to me. And I kept saying, I don't know why I'm yawning. It was because the situation, like the conversation was getting a little tense. And I think my body just started to like clam up from it, and I was yawning. It was my body trying to calm me down and get oxygen to my brain to make, clear choices. Did you know that some people with anxiety experience brain fog, which makes it harder to focus or remember simple things? I deal with this a lot. And for me, it's like, oh my God, I'm just getting old. No, it's probably stress and anxiety. It just causes your brain to fog over and you don't think as clearly as maybe you could. And lately I've had some stuff going on that has made me kind of anxious. And so these things all start to make sense. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, okay. I've been worried about this or that conversation. And so my brain is anticipating and it's trying to, fog me out or whatever. Did you know that anxiety can cause visual disturbances like seeing floaters or having trouble focusing your eyes? So when I'm diamond painting, I feel like I'm at my most relaxed and my vision feels sharper. But at times when things start to get really stressful, it's almost like, man, I can't get enough light. I can't see what I'm doing or whatever. And then eventually it does get better and it's like, oh, that's weird. Never even thought about it. And floaters, those are, like those, I don't know how to describe a floater, but it's like these little squigglies, it seems like, that you get in your eyes. And yeah, I've experienced floaters before. And then lastly, for the symptoms, surprising symptoms of anxiety, did you know that anxiety can make you feel like you're constantly in a dreamlike state? And it's a phenomenon called derealization. And I think some of that also is like part and parcel to brain fog and feeling like you're just in a daze. You're just sort of flowing through your day, or 3 hours have passed and you don't really know how it happened. It's not like you are necessarily leaving your body or anything like that. It's just your brain kind of daydreaming and taking you out of whatever situation it feels like you're in that's causing you stress. It's amazing, like, what our brains or bodies do to protect us from ourselves, almost. And then there's, like, anxiety in daily life, right? Some of these did you knows, it's like, yeah, okay, we know this, but it bears repeating, I feel like. Let me get a drinky here. Okay, so anxiety in daily life. Did you know people with anxiety often overthink past conversations, replaying them in their heads repeatedly? I'm very, very, very guilty of this. I tend, especially where autism is concerned, I tend to replay conversations anyways, because when I get to feeling like, I feel like if somebody's mad at me or whatever, I kind of play and replay what I said to try and suss out, like, if I did something wrong, or if I'm like understanding everything correctly. Am I maybe misunderstanding? Like, I do replay things over and over and over in my head. Did you know that social anxiety can make even texting someone feel overwhelming and exhausting? Yeah, I like phone calls. Phone calls can be a lot sometimes. And depending on how social you are anyways, just making a simple phone call to your bank, or, and I say simple phone call, but depending on what you're calling your bank for, it might not be a simple phone call, calling debtors or whatever. It's really exhausting. Did you know that anxiety can cause perfectionism, as people fear making mistakes or being judged? Boy, howdy. It's almost like, at times, that my WIP and chats, I tend to put up without much in the way of editing. And I do that because I feel it's important to present my most authentic self. And so if I present it without too much editing, then you understand, like, this is me. This is who I am. Take me or leave me, and maybe you don't want anything to do with me. But at least you know, right? At least you know what you're dealing with. Did you know that people with high functioning anxiety may appear completely calm on the outside while struggling on the inside? It's the old, like, you're a duck on water. Like, the duck on top of the water looks completely normal, but under the water his legs are like freaking out. I try to be the duck sometimes. Sometimes that's easier said than done. And then, did you know even happy events like weddings or promotions can trigger anxiety due to fear of the unknown? And boy, do I ever. But there are coping mechanisms. You can do deep breathing exercises, or it just, the deep breathing, it signals to your brain that you're safe because your breathing slows down. Like, literally, this is why people tell you, like, just take some deep breaths because it's going to be all right. Regular physical activity can be as effective as medication. like regular exercise, it actually boosts serotonin in your brain. So even like a simple taking a walk is really, really great at helping to battle anxiety. Certain foods like dark chocolate and chamomile tea have calming effects on the nervous system. So looking for foods that help with calming your anxiety could help you. And then cognitive behavioral therapy, and I've talked about this in a past WIP and Chat, CBT, is one of the most effective treatments for managing anxiety disorders. Like when I was first diagnosed, I was diagnosed as having generalized anxiety disorder without realizing that it was actually trauma response. And since I've gotten a little more tailored therapy, but cognitive behavioral therapy is wonderful for anxiety. And if you're not sure what it is, go look in my WIP and Chats playlist, and it should say cognitive behavioral therapy right in the title. You can learn some more about that. And then it's also very treatable, and millions of people successfully manage their symptoms with therapy, lifestyle changes, and support. So, thought you might find those things interesting. I know I did when I read them. And so if you've been doing any searches on anxiety, then hopefully you learned something. And I don't feel like I would have said anything that would trigger any anxiety, but if I did, I apologize. Y'all, I have this tarot card sitting here staring at me, and it's well over the time that I read it, right? Okay, so let me grab I'm gonna grab one of my handy dandy bees crafty corners to cover up my square so I don't get any stuff on my, I just lay it on top. There we go. Okay, here we are. So I've got it already shuffled, and let's find out what we've got. Ooh, G Habja. Sometimes these words are hard to read, but look at him. He looks like he's got something planned. All right, what's this for? It's our thought for the week. 61. Oh, almost turned right to it. G Habya. Interesting about the topic. The key words are imaginary fears, unreal hazards, realistic caution. Okay. It's time to look for the truth behind our fears, to distinguish between what is real and what is just our projection of old traumas and fears into our imaginary future. By delving into our old patterns, we can see past them to a more liberating life. Only by facing these fears honestly and seeing them for what they are do we gain greater ability to open our hearts to the singer. Oh, nope. Sorry. It went one page too far. Let me try that sentence again. Only by facing these fears honestly and seeing them for what they are do we gain greater ability to open our hearts and gain in strength to face the really difficult challenges in our lives. Each false fear confronted and resolved makes us much stronger. That's interesting. And it's funny, I shuffled these. This one jumped out and I was like, all right, that one goes on the top. So it's interesting that in a conversation about anxiety and real or imagined fears that the card would come up. I've probably had some real and some imagined fears coming into play like recently. I talked last week about kind of some stuff that I was worried about, and I had been worried about having a certain kind of conversation, and I just felt maybe a little weirdness or something. And to be honest with you, like, no, I still didn't have a conversation with that person, with the person that I was talking about, because the card was talking about proceeding with caution and not, you know, maybe jumping on my first instinct to confront or whatever. And so I really have been trying to hang back a little bit and not immediately take the offensive or even the defensive in regards to how I was feeling. And so when it comes down to it, like, sometimes I feel like I can really stick my foot in it because I overthink. I overthink everything. And it's like, I wasn't the only person who was seeing it, so I know I wasn't imagining what I was feeling. But it's like, you have to decide sometimes whether some conversations are worth having right then, or whether some conversations are worth having at all. Is it going to put a strain on things? Is it going to make it worse? Is it going to make it better? And so I often talk myself out of talking to someone about things that I'm feeling, because sometimes it's like, you know, maybe in the moment they didn't even realize what they were doing, and bringing it up to them might just make them feel some type of way, or like they did something really heinous and now you're mad at them or holding a grudge or whatever. And I deal with that sometimes even with Dustin, where it's like, you know, he thinks that because I've pointed something out that I must have been harboring these feelings, and that's just not how I operate most of the time. I'm really kind of crappy at holding a grudge, especially where it concerns people that I care about, because the default position that I would prefer to be in is where everybody gets along and everything's easy, you know? So generally I default to that mode anyways. I don't want to sit and harbor grudges. I don't want to sit and worry that something that was once good is now bad. And so it's about kind of confronting those false fears that just because someone is upset or angry, or even not realizing that they're speaking to you in a certain kind of way, that either A, talking to them about it is going to ruin your friendship, your relationship, your, you know, romantic relation, whatever kind of relationship you have with that person, but also in not completely discounting your own feelings, and that regardless of if they see it or if they feel it, it doesn't mean that it didn't make you feel some type of way, right? But it's interesting that that specific card came up as I'm, you know, talking about anxiety and what people see, what people fear, what they don't know. I've always been kind of a control freak. A lot of it, again, has to do with very deep trauma. And, you know, I'm not going into that. It's not the avenue for it. And I feel like far be it from me to put that on you. You don't need it. I'm sure you have your own stuff. And so I guess what is most important is that you understand that your feelings are valid, but that sometimes it's also important to know that feelings are not fact. And I think that we as just human beings, we can forget this sometimes because we are the heroes usually in our own story. I mean, it's very seldom that you find a person who does not see themselves as the kind of protagonist in their own story. That, you know, not that they're without fault, because I don't think anybody looks at themselves as without fault, or they're maybe just kind of a crazy person. A crazy person sees themselves as without fault, but we see ourselves as a protagonist in our own story, and so generally, because of that, our feelings to us are the most important, and how we feel is factual to what is, right? And that's just not always the case. I often find that what I've thought I perceived might not even be the intent or whatever. And I've talked about intent before. I've talked about how my intentions, while generally I mean no harm, doesn't mean that I've done no harm. And so there's that really special balance that you have to find between understanding, like, my feelings are valid, and then also simultaneously understanding my feelings are not fact. And it can be challenging to stop and put ourselves inside of someone else's mind. And what are you whining about? Hold, please. Sugar is apparently locked on the stairs. Just a moment. Look at who got herself locked on the stairs. A bonus. Sugar shaming. She was on the stairs just crying. Okay, Sugar. Now you go find something to do except whining at me that you're locked on the stairs. Okay, sorry. You just squeaky, squeaky chair. Just completely derailed what I was thinking about. Yeah, I have to remind myself that just because I feel it doesn't mean that it's necessarily someone else's intention that I feel hurt. And so it is important to let people know how you feel, but it is just as important to remember that because you feel it, it doesn't mean that their intention was to hurt you because you're feeling hurt. And I have to remind myself of that because there's been a few times in recent memory, recently, someone expressed to me that another person told them, well, okay, to put it into just a quick little tidbit, what ended up resulting of one person talking to another person about me was that it resulted in the other person making a not veiled threat on harming my person, okay? And at first I was really angry and I felt like, you know, yeah, come at me, how dare you, whatever. I don't really know what was shared between the two people about me. I don't know if the person who told me that didn't tell the other person that I'm terrible and I did this and I did that. And so the other person reacted out of anger because they didn't know the whole story or situation. And so rather than my feeling just angry about it, one, I'm not going to go back to that person and say, well, hey, did you threaten to kick my ass about this, that, or the next or whatever? Because frankly, I don't care. I mean, if that's the way somebody feels about me, then, you know, I guess you can come talk to me and find out what's up. I doubt that person would, the whole thing was kind of funny to me, to be honest, just surrounding the situation. It's not important, but I have to remember that my feelings in it, whether it was anger or whatever, are not factual in that I don't know the whole story. I know what I feel. I know the part of the story that I was told, the end. And so I just have to remind myself that just because I feel it, just because I think it, doesn't mean I need to say it, you know? And that is always, probably in my whole life, going to be a recurring theme. And it's probably going to be something that I repeat many times on here, simply because I need the reminder, you know? I feel like I've told you guys multiple times that I am not an expert. I am just a person, and that my opinion is my own. And what I say in here is not a medical, it's not a medical recommendation. It's not anything other than really me talking through my own crap and what works for me. And what has worked for me in these kinds of situations is that I need to remember that my feelings are not fact. And so hopefully, if you're dealing with a similar situation wherein somebody tells you something and they say, oh yeah, well, so-and-so said this about you while we were talking. Okay, but what did you say to them? Because I don't know that part. I wasn't there. Instead of immediately getting mad and going, oh, I'm going to go back to that person and do XYZ. Well, nah. Because I wasn't there. I don't know. I don't know. You know what I mean? But feelings are valid, but they are not fact. That's you know, that's the important part of all of that. And that regardless of what happens, you guys, I'm going to be fine. I promise. You don't have to worry about my safety. I'll be all right. It just happened to be a little something that came up. But that all said, you guys, I know that in everything, no matter what, you are doing better than you think that you are. You are a force to be reckoned with. And you are put on this earth to do the most good. And all you got to do is go out and look for opportunities to do that. And hopefully you learned something today about anxiety and recognizing some things about anxiety. And if you're wise, you'll keep on diamond painting and working through all of that, as it's massively helped me with mine, because oh my gosh, I'd be a wreck without it. I don't know about you, but tell me down in the comments, what are you working on right now? I finished several pieces. I will have some post reviews coming, but this is the one I'm working on now. Tell me what you're working on, or what you're looking forward to working on, and let's chitty chat about that. Tell me. I want to know. But you guys, as ever, my love goes out to you in whatever you're dealing with right now. You are powerful, and you're lovely, and you got this. And as I always say, you guys, I hope that wherever you are in this great, big, wonderful, wild world of ours, that you are having a terrific morning, evening, or afternoon, whatever time it is, wherever you are. All right, I'm going to see you again soon, okay? Bye-bye. See you later.